Hi, it's Ray Grant. It is Thursday, September 5th, 2024. It is 10:57 p.m. here in Pittsburgh. I wanted to speak very briefly about the D.B. Cooper um, case, of which I am not an expert. I am a D.B. Cooper hobbyist, if you will. So I'm not. Uh, I don't claim any particular expertise on the case. I don't think I'm necessarily any better informed than anybody who might be watching this video. However, since several aspects of the case have come up on Ned DeHaan's channel, I thought I would comment and present a couple of, at least one area where I do have some expertise in dealing with this sort of incident. I had when I was a USPS mailman back in from I worked for the Postal Service from 1973 until my retirement in 2011. The last 20 years or so of that time, I rode a mountain bike to work instead of I did not actually own a car. And I had people ask me multiple times, hey, people usually, the mailmen who don't have postal vehicles usually use their own cars. So do you use your mountain bike? And I said, well, I don't use my mountain bike because the problem that you have with handling mail is that people underestimate how heavy paper is. If you get a big chunk of paper somewhere, it tends to be very heavy. Okay. And that fact would limit how many street loops I could take with me. I could take maybe two or three loops with me, which would not, it wouldn't be worth riding my bike out to the route just to have like, two or three streets with me. You would need to have, a significant fraction of your route, to make something like that worth it. So my guess is that in 20 years of riding my mountain bike and delivering mail, I maybe used my bike in the process maybe three times, something like that. And again, the problem with that is that paper is heavy. In point of fact, there was an episode of Hawaii Five O where they're investigating a bank, I think like a bank robbery or securities robbery, where Steve McGarrett concentrates on how hard it is to handle and to hide that amount of money because it's a significant chunk of paper that you're dealing with. Okay, so somehow to move the whatever it was, the loot from the bank or what have you to some other venue, it would have to be somewhere. You would have to hide it somewhere, and that was the whole basis of the episode. And what I would say about the DB Cooper kidnapping is that one of the things that people do not take into consideration when they talk about the hijacking is that paper is very heavy. So DB Cooper received a ransom of $200,000, and he didn't. He basically didn't have any place to put that thing. The When he originally requested the money was supposedly it was supposed to be put in a knapsack, presumably so he could wear the knapsack as he was parachuting out of the plane. The problem is when they actually brought him the ransom money, it was it was actually in a I believe it was in a canvas bag, which he was very dissatisfied with, and he tried to put some of the money in one of the. He was given 4 parachutes, and he tried to put some of the money in one of the parachutes. Okay, because he wasn't happy with the bag. Okay, um, when Cooper parachuted out of the plane, he was facing headwinds of 172 miles per hour. Okay. Now, someone may come back and say, well, paper may be heavy, but the amount of the bills that Cooper would have had would have weighed less than 20 pounds. I think they estimated that the ransom bills actually weighed 19 pounds. Okay. Well, I have weightlifting equipment in my basement. I have a 10-in-1 bench. I have Olympic weights, and I'm used to handling, um, weightlifting equipment. And if you have like a 20-pound weight, if you have a 20-pound plate, it's very heavy. Okay, it weighs 20 pounds, but the problem is all of the weight is in one place, and it can be kind of awkward to handle if you're in a an awkward position. Okay, so what I'm getting at here is that DB Cooper did not have the ransom money strapped to his body because they didn't give him a knapsack, and he had to carry it or wrap it around himself as best he could. And in the course of him parachuting out of the plane, apparently, the money came loose. Now, we know 2 things about the ransom money. We know, number one, that a portion of the ransom money, about $5,800, was found on a riverbank. It was almost completely destroyed, but they were able to trace it back to the ransom money that they had taken the serial numbers for before they gave it to Cooper. So they knew that the 1,500 that was found was from the DB Cooper hijacking. Okay, and that is consistent with the possibility that Cooper actually lost all of the money as he was parachuting out of the plane, or in the course of going from the plane down to the ground. Okay. Additional reason to believe that is that none of the serial numbers of any of the bills that were given to Cooper during the hijacking ever turned up. Okay. Now, somebody may come back and say, well, he may have just, passed a 20 here or there at a gas station or at a grocery store or what have you. Okay, but people were looking for those specific bills, and the FBI would have sent out a bolo, be on the lookout um, for bills with those particular serial numbers. So, as a result of that, they would have been able to locate Cooper geographically in a general sense. If a bill turned up in a certain place, they probably would have been able to trace the money at least back to wherever Cooper actually used it. Even if they couldn't trace it directly back to whatever transaction he used when he passed it. And the fact remains that none of the bills showed up. Okay, so that plus the discovery of the $5,800 is consistent with the could use some water again. Is consistent with the possibility or probability that Cooper became separated from the ransom money on his way down from the plane to the ground. Okay, There's an old saying, a fool and his money are soon parted. A hijacker and his ransom money are soon parted when he's diving into a 172 mile per hour wind and he doesn't have the money strapped to his body, as Cooper didn't. So the problem is that, again, because paper is heavy and it's all in one place and it's very awkward to secure under a situation such as that, it seems very likely that Cooper went through this entire hijacking, and when he finally got to the ground, he didn't have any money because he'd become separated from the money. And again, that is consistent with the probably the most popular suspect in the D.B. Cooper case is Richard McCoy. And the original hijacking took place in November of 1971. And McCoy then committed a copycat hijacking in April of 1972. And he was tripped up basically because someone who, when he was hitchhiking, somebody remembered that McCoy had a jumpsuit on, and he was carrying a duffel bag, and they were able to trace that. Plus, I think McCoy also left fingerprints on magazines they read during the second hijacking, and they were able to trace it all back to McCoy. Now, what we know about McCoy is that he was extremely resourceful. This is a guy who had won multiple medals in Vietnam, and he was a pilot and was a skydiver. So the level of expertise, actually, his level of expertise was probably greater than that which was displayed by Cooper. Of course, D.B. Cooper could very easily, he had a bag with him that the flight personnel never actually saw. His flight bag could have contained a jumper suit and boots and so forth. They point out that when he was on the plane, he was just wearing loafers and regular pants, but he could have changed prior to making the jump. In any case, if you're Richard McCoy and you go to all this trouble in November of 71 and you end up being separated from your money, and then you're frustrated, but you know that you can pull off a hijacking like this, so you do it again in April of 72, this time with more money, with $500,000, and he ended up, I think, spending only $30 of it before he got caught. And then Cooper, again, McCoy was very resourceful. He was able to escape from Lewisburg Penitentiary in 1974 and was eventually killed in a shootout with the FBI agents in 1974. Okay, so if you put a gun to my head and said, who do you think D.B. Cooper was? I would say the most likely person would be McCoy, for the simple reason that he had the expertise to pull off the skyjacking, and plus his what happened to D.B. Cooper, where he had done the skyjacking, but he ended up getting separated from the money. That is consistent with what McCoy then did, which is almost immediately afterwards just do another skyjacking. And this time he was able to hang on to the money. Unfortunately for McCoy, the second time they were actually able to trace him. Okay. And the FBI has apparently said that they have credible evidence that McCoy was actually in Las Vegas on the day of the Cooper skyjacking. The problem is that the FBI was still looking for DNA for McCoy in 2004. In other words, 30 years after McCoy was shot to death, the FBI was still trying to gain his DNA, which suggests that they weren't so sure that he was eliminated by any sighting in Las Vegas. So, as I said, if you put a gun to my head and say or put all your money down on one suspect, it would be Richard McCoy. That may be wrong, and apparently there are multiple people who have enough expertise to pull off what DB Cooper did, because in the immediate aftermath of the Cooper skyjacking, you had, I believe, 5 cases of copycats. Plus, all 5 of those men survived the the incident, and that forced the FBI to revise their belief that whoever DB Cooper was, he'd probably died during the parachuting. Um, Chances are, the area that he parachuted into has been searched extensively, and it seems more likely than not that Cooper did in fact survive. And the reason that the money hasn't shown up is that he became separated from the money. And again, all of that is consistent with the evidence that we have. Okay, so the the basic answer as far as DB Cooper goes is what happened after he exited the stage is that he became separated from the money. Okay, that's the closest thing to a certainty that we have in the case. But again, my guess is that Cooper was Richard McCoy, and whatever the FBI had on him in Las Vegas was probably was not ironclad, and that the reason that McCoy did what he did was that he had been foiled during the first skyjacking. He pulled it off, and then unfortunately, it's kind of like the end of the Treasure of Sierra Madre, when they go to all the trouble of prospecting for the gold, and then while they're being distracted by bandits and the Mexican police and everything else, all the gold blows away. Okay, so that's basically what appears to have happened. If it didn't happen to McCoy, it appears to have happened with Cooper, and so that's what my opinion is on the case. I believe that the main problem with the skyjacking was that after going to that much trouble, he ended up just losing all the money. Which I guess served him right. Richard McCoy, if you're going to do a long series of people want to psychoanalyze somebody, there's somebody who would have deserved psychoanalysis, in retrospect, because here's a guy who had served in Vietnam, had multiple medals, Purple Heart, and all sorts of other um, uh, accomplishments, and appeared to be a hero. And then he, because of this knowledge that he had of how you could pull off a skyjacking, decides to do that. And he resembles in many ways, if you look at the history of James Earl Ray after the Martin Luther King assassination, which would have been really just the King assassination was in 1968, and the Cooper skyjacking was in 71. Uh, Richard McCoy is somewhat similar to James Earl Ray in the sense they both managed to escape from jail. they both managed to elude the authorities for a while anyway. And they both appear to have uh, you know expertise in certain areas. So as I said, if I were asked to name a Cooper subject, I would say it's probably McCoy. In any case, I think what happened to DB Cooper is that as he was floating down from the airplane, the money got away from him, and that that was pretty much that. And then a few months later, he tried the same trick again and was less successful. I guess it's unfortunate that he lost all that money, uh, for him, but it served him right. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the DB Cooper case, and it's just I'm sure it'll go on, go on forever on the internet with people, speculating about who it was. I believe it was probably Richard McCoy, but you know, as I said, there were a lot of people with that level of expertise and with somewhat similar backgrounds to McCoy back then. So it could have been any of those people. So, all right, thanks very much. I will talk to you again soon, possibly, very soon.